Welcome back to the council meeting of Lompoc. We'd like to do a roll call. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Mosby.
Present.
Councilmember Vega.
Here.
Councilmember Cordova.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Dirk Starbuck.
Present.
Mayor Janelle Osborne.
Here.
Mayor for a day, Dr. Scott Holbrook Dahlquist.
Here. City Attorney, report on action taken during closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for a day. The City Council met in closed session tonight to discuss the 4 items that are listed on the agenda. 1 labor negotiations item, number 3, an anticipated litigation item, number 4, an existing litigation item regarding the case Cooey versus City of Lompoc. On all 3 of those items, staff gave a report to council and council gave direction back, but no reportable action was taken. On item number 2 on the agenda, an existing litigation item, Alcox versus City of Lompoc, the council did not discuss that item in closed session.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to have a moment of silence for the loss of life over this past weekend. If you'd all bow your heads.
Please rise and bow your heads.
Thank you. If you could follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Presentations presented elsewhere. On October 10th, 2019, at the City of Lompoc Centennial Park, Mayor Osborne presented a proclamation declaring October 2019 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And now Mayor Osborne will make a presentation.
So I want to say thank you to Dr. Scott Dahlquist for first bidding on Mayor for the Day with the Rotary Wine fundraising event. It is all utilized for good causes. The Rotary does great fundraising and picks things in our community, such as putting in the clock in Old Town, helping support the fire department with equipment in previous years. So they always look at potential projects that are going to contribute and put the community in a better place. And they do that through their fundraising event, the wine tasting event that's held at the Vets Hall. And as a nonprofit, they reach out and ask if we might offer up Mayor for a Day. As part of that, you get to come spend the day with the mayor and take a tour of the community. So today we visited the water treatment plant, the library, the fire department, Station 1, the wastewater treatment plant, and the landfill. So the lunch was also had at Floriano's on me, and we talked about, local issues and what he'd seen in the morning and what he might see in the afternoon. So my hope is that you have a better understanding about how our community is a full-service city, what that means, and what it is a benefit to being a part of our community, and are excited to share what you've learned, not just with Rotary, but with your patients and with your neighbors and friends. I would like to present you with a plaque for Mayor for the Day of October 15th, 2019, and your generous donation to Lompoc Rotary and all the good they do for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And you're welcome to say a few words if you'd like, and then you're released from your responsibilities for the day.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. It really, truly was a pleasure. I had no idea. I thought about 1:30 we'd have lunch and maybe a couple of cocktails and relax and thinking things would be great. But actually, I was so impressed at the schedule and the routine we had today. About 2:30, I felt like I needed to say uncle. But very impressed with what's going on. I've only lived here 2 years, and everything that I saw was just very impressive. Everybody felt like they were very engaged and invested in their job, and I don't know, it was just a really good feeling, and I'm excited to go back to like I said, the Rotary, to my patients, my friends, people I work with, and I'm just really a very great experience for me, where I didn't expect this at all. Very unexpected pleasure meeting everyone, and thank you so much for letting me do this today. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and I really enjoyed showing you our community and look forward to hearing the stories back from what you regale about our awesome, he was very impressed with our water treatment facility and our wastewater treatment facility, and I think put all the staff through the ringers with the complex questions he asked. So it was an excellent day, and thank you again.
Thank you so much.
All right. City manager report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The first one, I'll be attending the League of Cities Conference in Long Beach with the mayor, and Dean Albro, our Management Services Director, is going to be acting city manager during that time. Some good news, we will have no PSPS, that's the Public Safety Power Shutoff, is expected this week in the city. There is some down south a little farther from us, but for the city of Lompoc, we don't have anything to worry about as of today. The last one is the city's Make a Difference Day is Saturday, October 26th. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. If you can all please come out and help, sign up is on the city's website. There's a link on the front page to make it easy. Just click on that and just follow the instructions. So we hope to see everyone out there for that. That's it.
Councilmember Mosby.
Yeah, real quickly, on the power shutoff, I had a call today, somebody was asking, they communicated and said, we'll get in touch with you if we have the PSPS. And they want to know how is somebody going to get in touch with somebody if the power is turned off. So I don't know if you have a mechanism that we're working on or it's going to happen. I know we talked about the radio station with a generator and a couple other items, but if maybe you don't have the answer now, or you could have more later.
No,
or something.
it is a tough one because if the power's out, how do we do it? So we are working on getting a backup generator for the radio, but then if your radio's out because your power's out, it doesn't do good. So the little transistor battery operated radios are good. We will be doing, it's typically, and it's only happened, this is the first year, they're trying to give as much notice as possible. So if they're going to give a 48-hour notice, we'll continually run that on the radio station. We'll run it on our cable channel.
I was just going to tell you, they give a 48-hour notice on whether they're going to be shutting down or not. And this week it looks like probably Friday, Saturday, and Sunday it will be down south, and it is the power company Edison, Southern California Edison, that's talking about it. We're okay up north.
Yeah, but it would be a tough one because if we're all out of power, again, we'll have some backup generators, but those battery-operated radios would be good to have for everybody so we can continue to do updates.
Or they could go to their car. I mean, most people have a radio still in their
Yeah,
car. So
exactly.
But yeah, that was one of the questions that was asked to me today is, how can we, because they might be able to identify when they're going to do it, but we won't necessarily know when it's going to be turned back on. So that's.
And, we've talked about, they have what they call the reverse 911, so we call out. Unfortunately, people, for an example, if you've had your utilities on for 20 years, you may not have updated your phone number for 20 years. Might have been an old landline, and maybe it's disconnected because now you're on cell phones. So trying to do a reverse 911 will probably be a very spotty hit and miss. Some people aren't able to get it if it's a landline. They're at work, so they won't know about it. So we think right now the radio and our television channel would be the best at this point because we have no other way of doing it at this.
How about the police app? Would that be something maybe that's very successful, something that could be utilized?
Yeah, we can talk. I can talk to the chief about doing that. There's a lot of people have signed up for that. So,
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions for our city manager, we'll move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is all items listed here are considered to be routine and enacted after one motion in the form listed below, and there will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to council vote. Any item withdrawn from the consent calendar for separate discussion will be addressed immediately before the second oral communications near the end of the meeting. We'll now open the floor for public comment on the consent calendar for 3 minutes. So if you have any item on the consent calendar that you would like to speak to, please come to the podium. Seeing no one rise, we will close public comment on the consent calendar. Councilmember Mosby.
Yeah, a couple items aren't quite so routine. I wonder if the city clerk could read it into the record for those who don't have the paper and for those who aren't following along.
All items or?
Just the main title of 1, 2, and 3.
Consent calendar item number 1, adoption of resolution number 6285-19, authorizing application for Department of Housing and Community Development Planning Grants Program. Item number 2, adoption of resolution 6286-19, authorizing destruction of obsolete city records. Item number 3, adoption of resolution 6287-19, approving the filing and applications to receive Proposition 68 per capita program grant funds.
Thank you. And if I may just ask a couple more questions, just about the destruction of the documents, item number 2. From what I understand, it's not all the documents are disappearing. A lot of these are backup files.
The majority of those are like the CalPERS one. That'd be something that we keep in one of our systems. We do reports and then we report to CalPERS. So that it has sensitive information, but it's something that we keep backups of. Same with the checks. All our checks, we have them in our electronic scanning. They're electronically kept, but they still have information that could be sensitive. So we're proposing that they be shredded.
And how far back do you go on the checks?
The checks and key file, some around 2000. I'd have to go look up, but yeah, some files even go back to the 1997 that we have in key file, our old system.
Okay, so most of the important stuff has a digital backup.
Yeah, and all these are from 2012 to 2014, so they're past the retention that we have to hold them. And pretty soon we'll be utilizing our Tyler Munis system, and all the documents will actually be stored inside there. So we won't be bringing as much of this back to you because we won't have hard copies.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Mosby. Sorry, I just wanted to be clear that according to Mr. Albro, most of these documents are being digitized, but that does not mean all of them are being digitized. If they were all going to be digitized, this item would not need to come to council because any document that's digitized doesn't need to be approved by council to be destroyed.
The main items I was concerned about is the accounts payable checks and CalPERS components. So those are covered. Head nods, yes, thank you.
Yeah, those are all scanned in.
Councilmember Cordova.
On the conclusion on the staff report, it states that several of the documents that are required to be kept permanently do not lend themselves to electronic scanning for a variety of reasons. And then it goes on to say some records that are required to be kept permanently, even if the retention of the documents are satisfied under the section code 34090.5, may be kept in their original form, and finance division staff deem it advantageous and there is adequate storage space to do so. So is this saying that some of the documents that we are required to keep we cannot digitize, and if we don't digitize them, they may be kept, I guess, under the finance division staff if they deem that it's something that they should keep? But I'm a little confused because it's saying that some documents are meant to be kept permanently and they don't lend themselves to be digitized. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about eliminating records that are supposed to be kept permanently, and we're saying we are digitizing them, but then on the conclusion report, it states kind of the opposite, that it's to the discretion of the finance manager and whether we have enough space to store them.
I'll let the finance division speak as to what is actually being done, but as a matter of law, if there are records that are required to be kept permanently, we can keep them either in physical form or we can keep them in digital form. If there are documents that are required to be kept permanently that do not lend themselves to being digitized, then we would need to keep those in physical form.
And there are some forms that we do have files that are hard copies that we have to keep by our retention record or by our policies. So there are some that we have to. Bank activities is an example of some of them.
I guess where I'm confused is it says may be kept in their original form when finance division staff deem it advantageous. So the whole may be kept when we're saying that they're supposed to be permanent records. Am I reading this wrong, I guess? I'm asking for clarification on the writing in the conclusion paragraph.
I think what that sentence is saying is that if there's any document that's required to be kept permanently, but it doesn't lend itself to being digitized, then it may be kept in its original form when finance staff deem it advantageous and there is adequate space to do so. But it actually has to be kept in one of those forms, either physical or digital. It must.
But is that what this is saying? Because when it says it may be, and then it's saying it's deemed by the finance director, and there is adequate storage space to do so. So that would lead me to believe that if we don't have storage, the finance division manager can choose to eliminate those records. No?
That it can be read to mean that, but I don't think that's what it's saying. I certainly hope that's not what it's saying, because if any record is required to be kept permanently, we need to keep it permanently. If other staff has input for that, go ahead.
I was just going to ask our finance director if pulling out the adequate storage space, is that going to have any?
Yeah, my intention was like what he said. If it's something that we have to keep, we'd try and find, we would store it. Right now, we have a lot of them over on E Street, and that they're just stored there, and they'll be there for quite a length of time. But, you know, my point when I wrote that was that some are digitized and we can destroy them, and some we'll have to keep. We'll have to figure out what we're going to do, but yeah, it was, like he said, if it has to be kept, we're going to follow the retention record policy.
I just would have liked for it to have read that they will be kept permanently rather than deem it under the, you know, finance division director, and then if it's advantageous, I guess, in his opinion, and whether we have adequate storage, again, in his opinion. Because then you change the permanent status.
I think your point is well taken.
Okay. And can I just, I don't know if it's possible for me to also request or make a motion for something to be considered. Is this adequate for me to do it now, or would I have to pull the item from the agenda in order to do that?
Well, it depends on what the request is, but why don't you
Okay.
describe what you might be requesting, and then I can determine whether it might be a council request to come back or whether it's a decision that can be made tonight.
Okay. I was just going to make a motion that I feel that when something gets digitized in its city records or any documentation, that if it's digitized, that we receive, that there is an index, or there's an index created of the items that were digitized, and that there is somebody, whether it be the city manager or the department manager, that they certify that that actually took place. Because that would be better checks and balances, and the only reason why I'm asking for that is because that's kind of what I do for a living. So I I feel that we should have some checks and balances where when we're going to destruct public records, I feel like we should have something that says that made it into the system and there was somebody that verified that this actually took place, because we wouldn't want it to come back on an issue later and have it come to the dais and say, oh, well, oops, we thought we did.
Okay, if the staff is not already following that process, then that would be a new policy, and we can bring that back at a future agenda, as long as we get 2 other council members to agree to that. But as to whether staff is creating an index and requiring a signature of some sort, I'll let the city manager speak to that.
So at this moment, we don't have any signature sign-off if someone scans it in. I do think, as we're scanning those in, prior conversation I've had is that we would be creating an index versus a 10,000-page PDF file that would be very hard to get through. I just noted down, but I can verify with our RT manager. He's out this week, but I can ask him when he gets back.
So you can make a council request to have that potential policy be brought back.
Yes, please.
I'll give her a second.
I'll give her a second and a third.
Thank you.
Councilmember Vega.
Is it okay if I get clarification on that? I mean, in finance, we scan thousands of records, and they're all indexed by check numbers and invoices. So I'm not sure how I would bring that back, that would be indexed and signed off by somebody, that this was scanned.
That's something that we can discuss when the item comes back, and we might need to make the policy for certain departments, but not for other departments, just because of practical reasons. But we can discuss that when the item comes back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because I'm not just meaning it towards finance. It would be any record that is considered city record or public record. I would want all of it to be included.
Councilmember Vega.
Yes, my concern with the destruction of documents that could connect the dots in the past to a future decision one day is my concern. I understand the destruction of documents, but I see here that we have the city attorney's office records, and I see code enforcement records. Now, is there a way of knowing, again, what Councilwoman Cordova asked about, knowing what is something that was a one-time incident that will never come back, that we'll never need again, and a way of, you know, we're getting these things as a heading. Obviously, some of these things were confidential. I mean, we're having to generically just say it's okay to destroy these things, but how do we know with the paper trail, with code enforcement, that there haven't been multiple violations? Some of these are really not that old. But I see city attorney's office records to be destroyed. Maybe the city attorney could clarify and kind of go through some of these documents. Are these public record? Are these confidential records that you guys that's just taking space up, and that you guys would decide only whether they're needed to be kept or not? Because if they're not public documents, then that might change something.
Well, in the city attorney's office, some of the files are public documents and some of the files are not public documents. Probably most in the city attorney's office are not public documents because they're attorney-client privileged or attorney work product. But this is I think, a rather routine item that we put before the council either every year or every other year when staff determines that there are documents that we have that have been kept the legally required amount of time under state law that cities must keep documents. When we've kept a record for that legally required amount of time, which is usually 2 years for most documents, then staff places those documents on a list. If it's felt by the administration that it is time to remove some of the documents in City Hall for storage purposes or to free up storage space. And as long as we've kept the documents for the legally required amount of time to keep them, then the city is authorized to destroy those documents. Other documents, the staff, for varying reasons, can decide to keep much longer than is legally required and to digitize those documents in order to save space. And this go round, the departments, some of the departments have decided to digitize documents instead of destroy the documents. But that's a judgment call that's made by the staff and then approved by the council at this kind of an item tonight when it comes before you.
Yeah, my concern was any historical documents such as staff reports or any kind of meeting reports. Are those destroyed in the same fashion and manner due to time?
They can be, but I do not recall what the legally required amount of time to keep staff reports is. I know we have to keep ordinances forever. I do know that we keep staff reports going back on our website for a very long period of time. But any staff report that has been kept for the legally required amount of time is destroyed, unless we keep a digital copy.
Right, and along with Councilwoman Cordova's request, it'd be nice to know that if a staff report or another document that leads to a decision, such as a resolution or anything else that we need to come back and categorize, it's usually, to me, it seems like it's pretty difficult to go back and backtrack a resolution that goes back in time. So going back to her checks and balances list, if we could, we'll discuss it in a future meeting, you know, or the next time to see what we can get back as a list, so we'll know exactly if we need to reference it, that what was digitized and what was destroyed and what was not.
Yeah, I think part of Councilmember Cordova's request was to have an index of anything that gets digitized. And then the list of documents that would be destroyed are these lists that are provided to the council.
I got you. And just to clarify, it was only because I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that sometimes staff reports and meeting reports that are a certain age could be subject to this also. Thank you.
City Clerk.
For clarification, we do keep staff reports almost permanently. We have them digitized till about 1980.
Councilmember Starbuck.
I move we accept the consent calendar.
And I will give you your second. Any other discussions or questions? Seeing none, let's vote. And that passes 5-0. We have no staff presentations on the agenda. Our next item is appointments, and we have the appointment for the Beautification and Appearance Commission. There is one position open for the term ending 12/2022, and that is Councilmember Starbuck's appointee. And we have an application from Christopher Clark. Mr. Starbuck.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we accept Christopher Clark as my appointee on the Beautification and Appearance Commission.
It's like,
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. And Mr. Clark, are you present? If you'd like to say anything or just wave to the community and say hi and welcome aboard. Glad to be here and ready to. Awesome, thank you. Our agenda is very short this evening. We have no additional formal items, but we will open the floor to oral communications. Oral communications are regarding any city matter. So please come to the podium. You have 3 minutes. And I recommend, if there's many of you, to line up. So the floor is now open for oral communications.
Okay. Good evening. My name is John Sluter. First off, I'd like to thank the City Council for listening, and I read the mayor's article about the more shootings. And I have some alternative thought process. I've lived in these alleys, and I know for a fact that recently we had 21 people arrested due to videos, and those videos and all the crimes have happened basically in the alley of F&G Street, Arbor Square, the apartment down there. We have nodes which carry internet that they can use, and there are cameras that are really, really inexpensive or may even already have in your property. I don't know. And one camera's worth 10 or 15 police because they can sit there and monitor those things. It's an ineffective alternative until you guys get the budget, because we can't wait for stuff to get stuff done. Because right now people are in fear. I read your article in fear, and you said the budget, it was some problems in that. And we're suffering from that, but there's no reason for us to continue to suffer if we know that. I just heard someone say, hey, there are people here that will help us get money for projects. Well, why don't we go get some video camera, try them in certain areas that are high crime. We just had one place that had 4 crimes within 0 time, within 2 days. They went looking for people, including the one that went out to Mission Hills. All came from that same area. Why not put cameras out there? We have the internet, we have the power, and it would be simple for an officer to sit there. I have a camera, and I give whoever needs whatever to get their job done, and a lot of people do. But if we don't know they're going to be used for something that's going to make a difference, why bother? I don't want us to be living in fear. Someone said something I heard the other day, if fear comes to the door and hope answers it, fear goes away. And then with faith, it runs away. So why don't you let us get a little faith in what we can get done here, do something to put a little money into it. I'm not talking a lot of money. Video cameras are not that expensive. And you already have the resources in place to put them up. And the police, talk to them. I go and talk to them all the time, and all they need is assistance. And I'm not sure that I saw in part of the article they're bringing in guardian angels. Lompoc is not guardian angel. This is not New York. We need the people to stand up and just make their own cause. I wish you send 4 people into those alleys where there's 15 armed, they ain't got a chance. So let's not put anyone at risk, give the police what they need to do the job, and if people have a problem, please don't be afraid to call the police because they're doing the best they can. But they need help, but we need your help too, Chief. We really do. And congratulations on what you've done. You got a whole lot of pictures. Run with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Osborne and City Council. I'm Richard Pate. I'm here to speak to you tonight in support of the Lompoc Theater project. I would like to see a building erected in the near future at H and Ocean that would complement the theater, a studio for teaching music, recording music, and a little museum regarding musical instruments, the history of musical instruments. I would like to see that building mirror the turn of the century architecture of the bank building that used to stand there before Calvert's mobile station. I would like to see a building at the other end of that block at Walnut and H regarding art, an art studio where people could teach art, painting and drawing and whatnot. Art booths where people could work on their artwork, a retail store where people could purchase their art supplies. And I would like to see that building also replicate turn-of-the-century architecture. I would like to see a museum portraying local agriculture somewhere in the downtown area. Pictures and antique farm equipment and whatnot. Any questions?
All great ideas, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Dareth Devich, and this is my first council meeting, and I'm really impressed with the intelligence of everyone that I've heard this evening. My concern is we have a great police department, and my concern is the community is not getting involved enough in supporting our police. supporting the things that we need in this community, not just a list of changing this or painting that, but how can we take back our city and make it what we want it to be, something wonderful and proud to be living in. And I'm going to reach out to whomever will listen to me and find out, take instructions from you on how I can be a voice to get people together to support our community. Because there's a lot of things going on that concern all of us. And some of the things are in place and we can't change that. But we can make the best of a bad situation and we can become a strong community. And I just want to take it back. And I want to support our police department and our fire department and our mayor. But I need to know how I can do this and how I can rally people to stand up for our community. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Richard Hickox. I've been in town about 4 years. At first I wrote this, it took 10 minutes, and when I found out I had 3 minutes, I had to cut this thing down. I'm here tonight because I was defrauded by, we'll call him Mr. X. I've been living in one of his properties for over 2 years, 315 East Chestnut. It was brought to my attention by Officer Garcia that stopped by the property that a vehicle had a title problem he wanted to discuss with me. After I did, when he left, he said, "By the way, you have no right to be living here in your RV." And I said, "But I've been living here for over 2 years and paying rent. When was it illegal?" He said, "Go and see the city clerk and she'll tell you." So I immediately went down and saw the city clerk. And of course, Mr. Garcia was correct. The city clerk said to me there was no license on that property to be conducting business. It was zoned commercially and I was living there residentially. So I said to her, "Well, do I pay the rent or what?" And she said, "Well, he doesn't legally have it coming." So I contact Mr. X by text, and I told him what they told me, and he said, "Then just get out." I couldn't get right out, so he evicted me immediately and won a $6,500 judgment against me. I'm 65 years old, I'm on a fixed income, I'm retired. I was hoping now that an actual crime was committed that I could get the local code enforcement and the police department to take my actual report so that I could turn it into the Santa Barbara Elder Fraud Abuse Association so they would get to the bottom of it and get the illegal judgment pursued against me off of me. When I went to try to stop it and get a appeal, I dropped off my appeal in town, but 2 weeks later I got a note in the mail saying I didn't pay $225, but the woman at the office didn't say I needed to pay a dime and said your appeal is in. So now that I'm under the wire for $6,500, I was hoping that the chief of police could find it in the kindness of his heart so that my girl and I could sit and show you the evidence that we have and possess to show you how we've been defrauded, the city's been defrauded, the state and the federal government are defrauded by this individual. I've always paid him cash. He never gave me a receipt. He's a very wealthy man, and he lives in town and does business here. My phone number is area code 760-218-7712. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Sean Cosby, 20 years old, lifelong resident. I want to start off by taking a quote straight from Lompoc Records, straight from you, Janelle Osborne. "We have not prioritized public safety as a council. It has been a personal priority since I began running for and being on council, but as a council majority, that has not been reflected in the decisions we've made." So I'm here concerned about the shootings and violence in Lompoc lately. I commend the first half of that comment, but the rest of it kind of disappoints me as a community member and someone who cares a lot about his city here. Just a couple of the accounts that I've personally seen myself, heard as well. Hopefully I get any of these close to as right as I possibly can, but then again, I'm hearing these from hearsay, so this is kind of a reflection of what the city has to say about it. One of the murders I saw earlier, I didn't get to see him obviously, but I was going to see my dad. He lived 2 blocks away from one that had occurred. And we passed by the crime scene. As soon as I got to his house, he was listening to his scanner, and he told me that a 17-year-old girl was shot in the head. The next one, a relative of mine was watching a kid who happened to have an uncle who was shot over on 3rd Street, I believe to be. And from what I've learned, the shooter was a 15-year-old in a gang. Third one I've learned of was recent Marlon Brumfield. I hope I got his name right. The soldier who was shot over on A Street. From the details I've heard of that, the two guys that shot him, one of them shot him at least, were looking for a particular person, but obviously got the wrong guy. From what I've heard, the guy who didn't shoot turned himself in immediately, thankfully, and the other one fled for Mexico. Once again, I don't know if all of these are completely correct, but I think they're a pretty good reflection of what the city has to say and what they feel. And then more recently, the F&G Street Alley Way. Just found out about that, just going on Facebook on Saturday night, just hanging out with some friends, and everyone on Facebook goes, did anybody hear some gunshots? And frankly, at this point, I'm deeply saddened to be hearing that much this far into anywhere. I think it's been 7 murders have been reported in the year of 2019 alone, and I know we're all pretty confused as to why it's all occurring, but we are scared. We're very scared, and we only want anything that we can, get to ensure our safety most. So whatever you guys can do for it, we'd greatly appreciate it. We'd like to back you as much as we possibly can in fixing this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seeing no one else rise, I'll close oral communications. And what I would like to do is invite our police chief up to speak momentarily. I know we've received some grant funding through LSUD to address some of the ongoing issues. And I know that he is working diligently and his team is working overtime to do what they can to solve these murders. It is unfortunate, but as the young man stated, we made a decision with our budget that did have an impact on our public safety, and it is unfortunately in reactionary mode. So, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. This week, I was hoping to share this news before the tragedy of this weekend, but last week I received word from the school district that they were awarded a grant in which we were partners in and we endorsed to the tune of somewhere around $700,000. It's a 3-year grant, and the hope was to be able to staff an additional school resource officer. And that's good news, but at the same point, in order to staff that position, I need to put a seasoned officer, and right now I need all the officers I can, or that I have, to put them in patrol. So that continues to be our challenge. We've heard enough about what we're facing. We are in dire straits. We need additional resources. We've been relegated to 2 primary functions, and I stated that months ago. And we continue to struggle with the fact that we can't do proactive selective enforcement because of our staffing levels.
Thank you for that. So to those of you that are interested in law enforcement, we are taking applications. To those of you that want a mid-career change and are interested in law enforcement, apply. To those of you that are retired and want to get back and contribute to the community, if you have an interest in law enforcement, apply. This is an amazing community. Our priority number 1 is public safety, and we are looking to improve that. But until we have the staffing, unfortunately, this is a reactionary mode. So again, I do feel personally responsible, and not just because I'm the mayor, but because I love this community, and losing another young life is very, very disheartening and sad. And I really want our young people to not take it out on each other, and I love the individuals came here tonight and said they want to know how. So at the end of the meeting, I have a few announcements of some activities that are going on, so I'll share those with you. But thank you, Chief. I know you're not pleased and don't want to see this continue to happen, and so again, the public, if you witness something, if you hear about something, if you know of something, call the police. Be willing to be present, be a witness, and help protect your community and help them do their job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any written communications? Thank you. Now we'll start with council comments and meeting reports. Councilmember Vega.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Councilmember Mosby.
First of all, SB 13 was signed by the governor. So that was one of the items we had.
That's correct.
Yes. So SB 13, the ADU bill, which limits the ability for communities to charge impact fees under ADUs under 750 square feet. The other thing is, let me comment on the statement that was made by the mayor in the paper. First of all, this council and the council majority did fully support the police department. We reached out as deep as we could. It doesn't make any sense to give money that you don't have, which is one of the problems that has happened. For 3 years in a row, we deficit spent $3.1 million, took an $8 million reserve down to $1.75 million. We gave 9% raises in supporting the police department. We increased their ability to spend money by a little over $1 million this next year. It's in the budget book, Chip. So the comments that come out that this council doesn't support, I don't know where you guys think we're going to get money from. We did make the statement in labor negotiations. We held 3 positions so that we could dig in the pocket to get the 9% raises. We had to dig deep to get that and to cover that. We can't just keep passing out money we don't have. It is a big concern when you take $8 million of reserve and you take it down to $1.75 million. That's where we are right now. So we have dug deep to do it. We made the statement that if we have new revenues, the first 3 positions to be brought back on the list are those 3 police positions. Those of you who have been watching council meetings in the past, in the recent past, it was stated here that the difficulty is in not funding the positions, is that the people applying for the positions. The money is there for the positions. And the council majority up here has been a very efficient council and has been willing to spend the money that they have and not spend hypothetical money and to keep us out of a death component that we were going down the hill to. We had to make some tough cuts in the budget, but they were not at the police department. We did increase again, if you want to look at the budget book, I'll show you the pages. I mean, I don't know why you think it's funny, Mr. Arias, Sergeant Arias. But I mean, we dug deep to do what we had to do. And comments like this, that we don't support public safety, the council majority most definitely does. We don't support a bigger catastrophe would have been if we spent all the money we had and we had no money for emergencies. So we have dug deep to do what we can do.
Councilmember Cordova.
I attended the Military Affairs Committee, or the Military Affairs Appreciation Barbecue on October 9th at Vandenberg Air Force Base. And I just have some comments that I'd like to make. Ever since I got on this council, you know, we've talked about and we've focused on how we don't have money. And that is true. We don't have the money. I would love to, at some point in time, turn our focus into what we're going to do to make that money, to make this community a better place. I don't think any amount of money is worth the conversation when somebody or people's lives are being lost for whatever the reason is, whether it's gang related or whether it's people that are losing their lives as innocent bystanders. I think our focus needs to be in a better place, and as long as we're pitted against each other, we're never going to find that common ground of how we can move together this community. So when people come up to the podium and they say that they want to get involved, that is exactly what we need. We need you to get involved. We need you to come up, and we need you to say what is important to you. Join an organization, join a committee, get involved, find out what we can do. That's the reason why I ended up here, because I got tired of hearing all the things that we can't do and the reasons why we can't do them. So I encourage the community to get involved, and let's try to really come together, because I don't want to fight with the police department. I don't want to fight with the fire department. I don't want to fight with my staff here at City Hall. I want genuinely a change for Lompoc, and when we can vision together and see that we're worth more than that, then I think that we will actually see change, and we will stop seeing the violence that we have. And funding or finding ways to fund is what we need. We have to find ways to fund our police department. We have to find ways to continue to fund our fire department. Those are necessities. I understand we don't have the money, but we need to find ways to do it.
Thank you. Councilmember Starbuck.
No reports.
Thank you. I attended the Region 9 Water Board workshop on people experiencing homelessness and their impact on water quality in San Luis Obispo. I spoke on behalf of the city to the California Garden and Landscape Historical Society, who chose to have their annual conference here in Lompoc last weekend, and they come from all over the California state and were really impressed with our community and really loved it and went away wanting to recommend their friends to come back and visit and stay here. So that was awesome to hear from them. And then I attended the United Way's Mayor Ball and wanted to thank the United Way for not only the funding they put aside for our community in support of the homeless issues and the veterans issues, but they also fund a reading program with Lompoc Unified School District that consistently has allowed those that participate in the program to bring their classrooms that are reading 2 or 3 grade levels below to above grade level within a year. And Lompoc Unified School District has shown so well that 3 years in a row they have won more money and more funding as a result of that program being so successful in Lompoc schools. So United Way has contributed a lot to that. There is the photo contest that the Recreation Department is holding, and they are still accepting submittals till the 18th of this month, and there is an application on our website, or you can call 875-8100 to find out how to participate in that. The group that organized the march for Marlin and those that we have lost wants to continue the discussion with the community. They have organized an event for Friday, October 25th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Dewey's Center. It will be called the March to Make a Difference Community Meeting, Taking Steps Towards a Better Lompoc. Their invitation is to the community to come out, speak to your concerns, use that voice, those concerns that you have, speak to them. If you have ideas, speak to those as well. And then have a follow-up meeting in November. They're putting together a group of professionals in our community that can help us address some of those ideas and concepts so that we feel empowered and have the tools to address all of the things we're going through, whether it's the experiencing violence ourselves or if we're going through a period in our life where we need additional support. So they want to make sure that it feels focused and supportive of those in our community that need the help. So the first meeting again will be October 25th, Friday night at 7 to 9 p.m. at the Dewey's Center, and it will be a listening meeting, gathering information, being heard, talking about our concerns and talking about potential solutions, to be followed up with a November meeting that is more of a panel discussion about potential solutions and a representation of some of the nonprofits and organizations in town that can assist individuals depending on the topics that come up from that public meeting. The second thing I'm working on organizing, as I've heard from many of you, is an opportunity to speak. And while you might not be able to make the Dewey's Center event for the March to Make a Difference group, I'm organizing some mayor town halls, and the goal is to have each one of them in the new districts that exist and invite the representative from council that exists on that district or potentially would represent that district as a result of it being implemented to join me to hear from those particular neighborhoods, because each district has very different impacts going on depending on what's happening. So District 2 has a very different experience and a different need than, say, District 1. So I will finish putting that together. It won't be at a city location. They will actually be at some location within those districts, so those neighbors and those residents and those businesses find it easier to get to that and can really speak to their neighbors and to the issues that they feel impacted within their own neighborhood and really feel like they're getting that attention that we absolutely need to give them so that we can also take it back to the city and to council. And my goal at the end of those meetings is to bring back a report that says every one of these districts feels this way and would like to see this happen. This district in particular is experiencing more intensely this issue, and maybe help guide council in further discussions about what we could potentially do in the short term. The last thing we need to do, I really believe, is get to know our neighbors. Get to know who lives in your neighborhood. Know who they are. Know who you expect to be in that neighborhood. Be supportive. Watch for things happening. Be attentive. Be vigilant, but do not be vigilante. This is not a take back. It is a love our community, support our community, take pride in our community, and let's identify how we can move that forward. I do appreciate all of you for attending tonight, and I invite you all to reach out to all of us and let us know your thoughts. Be supportive of the police department as they work towards solving not only this murder, but helping us bring back the town we all love and know it can be by having a fully staffed police department. I will now adjourn this meeting to the regular meeting at 6:30 p.m. on November 5th, 2019.